Hello and welcome to the first lecture on developing a crisis management plan in this course, Crisis Management and BCP. So in this particular lecture, we will talk to you about how to identify potential crisis scenario that can help you develop a crisis management plan. So, identifying a potential crisis scenario is a part of developing a crisis management plan that can help you establish a crisis management framework. The crisis management framework has two legs. One, to develop the crisis management plan, and second, to form a dedicated crisis management team. We will begin by taking a look at in this section the development of the crisis management plan. Next section, we will talk about forming a dedicated crisis management team. And as a part of the first lecture, we will talk about identifying crisis scenarios, potential crisis scenarios in this lecture. So let's take a look at how do you identify potential crisis scenario. So how do you think you can identify potential crisis scenario? Any thoughts? See, identifying potential crisis scenario is the first step in the crisis management plan. And this involves analyzing risks, assessing their impact, and prioritizing these risks based on the likelihood of occurrence and the severity, the impact they can make if they occur. So that's what you do in identifying the scenario, the first step. Now, what are the various step by step, if you were to look at what are the things that you need to do? First is to conduct a risk analysis. That can help you determine what types of crises your organization might face. And you can use many methods. Let's take a look at four of them here. First, you can do is to review historical data and industry trends where you analyze past crises your company or industry has faced, study crisis case studies from competitor or similar businesses. Second, you can do is to conduct SWOT and PESTEL analysis. Now, SWOT analysis, as you know, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats can help you identify internal vulnerability and that you do in a team. And the PESTEL analysis, which stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environment, can help you evaluate the external threats. And to do this, you sit with a team of knowledgeable people and do the analysis. Third method you can use is to engage with stakeholders on risk identification, and there you can interview employees, managers, and external consultants to identify risk and conduct surveys and brainstorming sessions with key teams like HR, IT, PR, and operations. And the last method that you can use is to monitor market and social media trends. And there you can use sentiment analysis tools like Brandwatch, Hootsuite to track the emerging crises and monitor regulatory changes and economic forecasts. So that's how you conduct a risk analysis. The second step would be to categorize the crisis scenario. Once these risks are identified, you need to categorize them into common crisis types. Now, what are these common crisis types? Let us take a look at them. So there are, you see here seven crisis types. One is operational crises. An example of that is supply chain disruptions, any major IT failures, or breakdowns in infrastructure. There could be reputational crises like social media backlash, leadership scandals, negative PR. There could be cybersecurity crises, systems hacking, ransomware attacks, data breaches. There could be financial crises like shortages in cash flow, market crashes, bankruptcy crisis. There could be regulatory and compliance issues in, failure to meet industry regulation, lawsuits, notices. And there could be environmental natural disasters like pandemics, COVID we saw, fires, floods, earthquakes. And there could be workforce or HR crises by employee strikes, mass resignations, workplace violence, etc. So you need to categorize those crises that you found from your analysis in the previous step. Then you need to assess the likelihood and impact. Once these crises are categorized, then you can use a risk matrix to prioritize them. Now, what does the risk matrix looks like? So you have the risk scenario, let's say cyber attack, and then you sit in a team and relatively, you look at all this crisis scenario, 1, 2, 3, 4 here, right? And then you say, what is the likelihood of occurring? Which is the most likely to occur? And then the team and all of you agree, say cyber attack. And how much would you rate on a 1 to 5? You rate 4. And like this, you rate each of them. Then you say, what are the impact of each of these? Which has the maximum impact? And you say cyber attack, and that's a 5. And other two also are 5. And based on that, you determine the overall priority level. Obviously, a 4 and a 5 and a 5 and a 5 would be high, and accordingly, and you could come to a common conclusion. And again, this prioritization will help you then focus on high priority risks where the likelihood is 3 to 5 and impact is 4 to 5. And that becomes your important part of your crisis management plan. The fourth step is to develop early warning signals to detect crises before they escalate, implement AI-driven risk monitoring, you know, like social media analytics, financial monitoring tool, set up crisis hotlines, and establish media tracking and sentiments. Now, in the crisis hotlines, basically you'll be able to use them for internal risk detection, whereas media tracking and sentiment analysis will be useful for reputational risk signals. So develop such early warning signals to detect the possible crisis is happening. So what are the final takeaways in this lecture on risk assessment? So first, we can use historical data, SWOT, PESTEL, and stakeholder inputs to identify the risk. Then we need to categorize risk into operational, financial, cybersecurity, environmental, HR, etc., that we saw. Then you need to assess each risk using a likelihood and an impact matrix and implement early warning systems for proactive crisis management. So what is next? So having looked at how to identify these crises, we will now look at how to define these crisis severity levels and response protocols that we started talking about in this lecture, right? So thank you so much for watching this first lecture on developing a crisis management plan. I hope you continue beginning to learn again new things, beginning to enjoy, and I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions, and do download the PDF file to take a look at all those tables that I quickly took you through.